In this video, I'll be sharing with you a requested tutorial on how to cut this stylish keyhole neckline dress with front draping. So I marked out the basic measurement for this pattern, which is the shoulder to bust, under bust, waistline and hip. Your hip measurement is 7 inches after your waistline, right? So after marking this, I'll place my tape and I will mark my shoulder divided by 2 plus ½ inch. And from that point, I'll come down by 1 inch here, mark a basic neckline of 2.8 inches, and for the depth of this neckline, I'll be using 2.5 inches. So now I'll go ahead to place my curved root to connect to the neckline. The next step is to connect from the neckline to the shoulder slant. After marking this, the next step, I'm going to find my chest line, which is the bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches, and I'll make a mark and draw out a straight line there. Now what I have on the shoulder, I'll mark it back at the chest line, and after marking, I'll place my ruler and connect it to the shoulder. I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to divide what I have there into 2 equal parts and come out by ½ inch. On the chest line, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Connect this point to the upper part, and from that bust circumference to the midpoint. So for this particular pattern, I'll be cutting it in form of a dartless pattern. Now at the bust line, I'll place my tape, mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and add my sewing allowance. Here I'll mark the under bust circumference divided by 4 and add the sewing allowance. The same thing, mark your waist circumference divided by 4 and add your sewing allowance. Also mark your hip circumference divided by 4 and add your sewing allowance. Now whatever you have at the hip, measure it and take out 1.5 inches from it so that the lower part will be fitted. Now go ahead to place your ruler, connect from the bust to the under bust to the waist down to the hip, and then go ahead to connect it to the lower part, that part that you marked 1.5 inches from. What I'll do next is to go ahead to cut this out, and we'll be using this to trace out the back pattern of this dress, right, instead of going ahead to redraft it again. Now for the back pattern, I added like a zipper allowance to it, and I placed my pattern on it, that is the front pattern. After pinning the front pattern immediately after the zipper line, for your zipper you can use 1.5 to 2 inches. So if you also want to make this dress without a zipper, you have to make sure that the fabric you're using is very stretchy and it can stretch out like a spandex fabric. Now come down by 1 inch from the neckline of the back and connect it. So for the back neckline, we're using 2.8 inches by 1, and I'll connect it to the zipper, right? So if you're not making use of a zipper, go ahead to connect yours, but make sure that if you're making this without a zipper, you have to use a very stretchy fabric because this dress is a bodycon outfit. I'll just go ahead and I will trace this out all the way to the lower part of my pattern. Then I'll make a mark at the bust, waist and hip line because I'll be taking out the zipper bulge at the back. This is if you're making with a zipper, and I'll now go ahead to unpin my pattern. So on that my bust, waist and hip line, I will go ahead to draw out a line there. This will be serving as a guide because I want to mark out the zipper bulge at the back of the dress. Now I'm going to go ahead to come in by ½ inch from the waistline, and I'm going to slant this all the way to the upper part of this pattern and then slant it towards the hip at the lower part. This way it will help me eliminate the zipper bulge at the back of the dress, and I'll go ahead to cut out. Now after cutting this, we'll go ahead to cut that of the front. We'll go ahead to work on the keyhole neckline of this dress. Now come down by 0.5 to 0.75 inches. Now depending on how deep you want the keyhole to be, I'm just using 2 inches here. Now you're going to draw out like an oval shape, right? And from here I'll come down by ½ inch after the under bust and I'll go ahead to blend it to this point. So after I'm done marking this, right, I'm just going to go ahead to outline. Now if you look closely on this dress, so it is as if there's a trimming around the neckline of this dress, right? So when you cut out this dress, you're going to be cutting it on fold. So after, when you're making it, you're going to go ahead to add trimmings to it, like a little trimming around this side to create like a design. So I'll just go ahead and I will trim this out. So after trimming it out, you're going to merge the shoulder. I want to cut out the collar area of this dress. So what I'll do is just to pin this together, like place it together. So for yours, all you have to do is, after joining your neckline, what you do is to take your tape and measure round the neckline of your dress coming from the front to the back. So for the front pattern also, towards the neckline, I'll take out like 0.5 inches from there. Blend it out a little so that I can have space at the center. Now after taking the measurement, what I have is 8.5 inches. So you'll be cutting for one side and also the other side. I'll mark that 8.5 inches, right? And I'll draw a straight line up. Now from this point to here is 8.5. I'll fold my tape into 2 and I'll mark the midpoint. So from this end of this pattern, I'll come up by 1/2 inch, and from that 1/2 inch, I'm going to slant it all the way to the middle. So the reason why I'm cutting this way is so that the collar will lap very well and it will not be hanging, like it will relax when you attach it to the neckline. So for the neckline, for the collar of this, you can use 1.5 to 1 inch. If you look at it at the collar there, it is slightly little. So now slant it to the edge this way and blend it out. So after blending it out, I'll use my marker to outline it. So what I'll do now is to go ahead to cut this out, and you'll be attaching it to the neckline of your dress also. So you're going to go ahead to attach this from the back all the way to the front. You're going to cut out 2 pieces of this, which you're actually going to add 1/2 inch all the way round it when you're joining this to your actual pattern on the dress. Then go ahead to attach this, right? So after that, the next step you need to take is just to go ahead to cut out another fabric, and you're going to drape this coming from close to the waistline. This your draping will go all the way down. So I'm just using this pattern paper, it did not get to the lower part. So you drape this for 2 sides of your dress.